everyone. It is 5:30. I'd like to call the study session to order. At this time, I would like to welcome any public comments that we may have. And this is for comments not on the agenda. Okay, seeing none, we'll move down to number 3, which is the roundtable discussion amongst council members. Does anyone have anything they'd like to discuss or bring up? See, I hear Delora nodding over here. Okay, you, go ahead.
I was wondering, I think it was 2 meetings ago, or maybe the last meeting, I had asked about updates on the streetscape progress and what the staff's plan is for updating council throughout the project.
So that was 2 meetings ago, the one I was not at, but my staff informed me that council wanted to be made aware of that. I thought I followed up in an email with a link to our city website under the news section. That's where we're updating all parties, the whole community. It's a downtown Allegan infrastructure and streetscape project update. It's where we're doing all of our updates for this project. We are, most recently, if you've gone there, you will see that the tree removal process is underway. And then we are waiting for the next step is Milbacher is producing a Gantt chart. We should have that sometime after the Thanksgiving, which is the time frame we're in right now, is what Kyle said. But I wasn't going to call him the Monday after Thanksgiving and say where is. I was going to give him a few days.
Will those updates include what the total spend is so far versus how much we have allocated?
Yeah, that's something we can go ahead and share with council. How often would the whole council like to see that kind of update?
At least monthly would be my preference, if not every meeting. But
I would be fine with monthly.
Would be fine, I would think.
We can do that.
Okay.
can we also see progress in regards to timeline? Like, we're estimating this phase will take this long, here's
Yeah.
where we're at.
Well, once I have the Gantt chart, and then I'll fully understand the time frame. Is everyone familiar with a Gantt chart is? So Gantt chart more or less is how you track a project with multiple components. So and you can correct me if I use the wrong terminology, but I believe it's the x-axis goes up and down. That lists all the projects, all the components, and then the y-axis is a time frame. And so like this component would start, April 2023 and go all the way to November 2023, where this component will be April 2023 and be done by May 1st, 2023, because it's a quick in and out. Like the tree removal would only be on there for 2 weeks. So once we get that chart, I'll share that chart with you or with all of council, and, we can go from there. Also heavily encourage council at the end of all my emails. It ends with the same line. If you have any questions, please call. Feel free to call me anytime. As I've mentioned before, I work 24/7 for you. So what I'm hearing, and I guess I see some heads nodding, but again, I work for a whole of council. Am I hearing once a month during the study session, you would like an update on the downtown project, downtown streetscape, and that would become a staple agenda item under the study session? Is that what I'm hearing?
I see 4 right here. Yep.
All right, Michaela, let's make a note of that, please. Thank you.
Thank you, Joel.
You're welcome.
Delora, did you have something?
Thanks, Teresa. I just had a couple things. First thing, Parker, I know that I've asked a little while ago about the welcome sign, like the overlay. Is that in the works still?
Yeah, Joel and I were just talking about it this morning, actually, because Michaela brought it up to us. Her sister brought it up to her. So what Delora was referencing are those oval signs. There's 3 in use currently. There's one at the end of Park by the fairgrounds on Delano Street. There's one at Water Street right in front of the Village Express gas station. And then there's one at Hubbard Street right at the intersection off of Cedar and M89 there. The last 2 are much more faded than the other. But the DDA had tasked the city with getting those updated in the meantime between now and a total wayfinding signage update. So a couple of years worth of time. We were working with a company, Signs Inc. I can't remember the
Signs
name.
Now.
Signs
Signs
Now,
Now,
thank you. And we had sent some imagery that we wanted them to update with, and they were telling us that what we had proposed wasn't going to work. And so we've had some back and forth with them, and we haven't landed on a final design yet. Just based on their recommendations, we weren't satisfied with what
Long
the
story
recommendations they were giving.
Long story short, they were trying to change our brand colors because they thought Allegan needed a more of a dark blue, deeper purple look instead of just black and white.
They had offered green and some other colors.
And so we said, no, it's a black background, white reflective letters. It's simple for a reason. Please get it done.
And like I was saying, it's going to be a temporary sign for the most part. So
Is it using this logo?
no, using the downtown logo.
Yep,
Oh, the one that we have online
Correct.
correct.
Yep.
with the pillars?
Yeah.
Thank you, because like decorating them for Christmas is like putting lipstick on a pig right now, I feel like. But, I mean, it helps a little bit, but
Yes.
it just kind of
It also
brings
draws attention.
attention
Yep.
to the fact that they're really, really faded.
Yeah.
The other thing that I just wanted to bring up is Joel had sent full council some information from SHPO about the HDC's recommendations. And I don't know if there had been further discussion to the HDC, because if we went the way that they were recommending, we would no longer be eligible for the grants. Is that correct?
Not eligible for the grants. We would not be in
would be,
compliance with
like, with the whole
PA
thing.
169, I think it is. So our local historic district would not be considered a historic district in SHPO's eyes.
Yeah. So I'm just wondering, because we wanted to give them an answer before the end of the year about how we were going to move forward that recommendation. And that kind of changes that. I know one reason we were trying to keep that was so we had that eligibility, or that's what I thought.
I think that request for that legal assessment was a little premature. I spoke with Alan Higgins from the CLG after I had first seen the letter and confirmed with him that the intent was to have a discussion about what CLG requirements would be, how we could move forward with what the community wanted, while still being in compliance with CLG. And he was very supportive of that. I don't think he realized that we hadn't drafted an ordinance, and that was a report about what we found would likely be best for the community. So I don't think that was the end of the conversation. Talking with Alan, he was very supportive of the idea of an ongoing conversation with our HDC, probably sometime in February or March. I think the first item in front of us is to make sure that the direction the HDC reported on is something that is best for the community. And then we can talk about what we can do to be in compliance and partner with CLG. And ultimately, if that ends up being something that CLG can't support, if it's still in the best interest of the community, I think that could make sense. But I think that was just a premature request to have that legal assessment. We should definitely have an ordinance drafted at least before we ask for that sort of assessment.
Yeah, I guess I think that it's good to know what they were thinking, so as we're moving forward, if we want to continue to be a historic district, to have their opinion on whether that recommendation is even possible. But as far as like our ordinance, you know, we had talked about reconvening that group to work on that ordinance, but we were going on the recommendation, or that's what I thought we were kind of going to look towards, is a recommendation from HDC. So if they're not going to have any more conversation with you guys until February with the HDC, then does that put us, you know, I don't want to leave them hanging after they've had that recommendation. You had specifically asked like a time frame that we could get them an answer to how we were going to move forward. So are we going to need to
Yeah.
push that out then until?
Well, I think there were really three recommendations or three options that were presented. One is continuing as we are with the HDC. One is eliminating the HDC altogether. And then the third was finding some way forward that preserves the HDC as best we can and aligns with the goals of the community. And I think the HDC really needed to get an understanding of, are you going to go with option one, option two, or option three there? And then they can start to work through the details of what that looks like. They had some ideas about the goals they could have in the ordinance, but I don't believe they'd gone through the task of actually proposing a revision to the ordinance yet. And I would assume that that would be a topic for the December and January meetings. And then as we get further along in the community's internal discussion about what's best for the community, then reaching out to that state partner to find how to align with CLG's goals.
Okay, so what should be a time frame to give HDC as far as like how we want to move forward? I guess that's my
Yeah, because they were
question.
trying to print us down the other night, you know.
Yeah. I mean, I feel like we can't sit on it too long, but I don't want to rush either, because I think this is, we know this is an issue of passion for both sides. So I want us to be wise and not feel like there's some external pressure that is going to force us to make a decision too soon. Having said that, I don't want us to drag our feet forever either. I want us to actually make a decision, but end of the year seems fast to me.
So, Mike, you're the new HDC representative, correct? I guess maybe just let them know that we'll be discussing it and probably not gonna be able to give them an answer by the end of the year, but.
Right.
Do you have thoughts on that, Mike? Okay.
Keep it on the radar. I mean, that's all for me.
Okay. Jared, did you have something?
Joel sort of just mentioned it, and we all know, but the tree cutting is happening. And there's been talk in person and on social media, very positive and very negative, but just thought we should acknowledge that. And it's happening, and it is a way starker difference than I would have expected it. And when you go down the streets, it's really interesting. I heard several people say how it felt like looking at the old pictures in the 1800s when the streets looked so wide because there were no trees, and it does kind of have that feel. But I've just been trying to reassure people that there will eventually be replacement trees, but that we didn't get the trees we had initially wanted in the first place with those. They were supposed to be dwarf locusts, and then they found out there was no such thing as dwarf locusts after they planted them and they grew to 30 feet high. But yeah, just there's a lot of discussion about it in town.
Yes, there is. Thank you, Roger. Mike, do you have anything for roundtable? Peter? Bill?
No, ma'am.
Okay. Anything else? All right. With nothing else going on between City Council Roundtable, we'll go on to number 4. This is the presentation and update on the potential hotel at 101 Brady Street.
I'm going to invite Brad Van Melly up to the podium. Brad's a representative of 102 Brady LLC. They are the entity that the city has a agreement with to develop 101 Brady into a hotel. Brad has some news he needs to share with council on that project. For me to remind council right now, the reason we have to have this discussion now is at the end of the year, they either have to offer an alternative plan for 101 Brady, or we are locked into the original design that was approved at the Planning Commission level, the Historic District Commission, and City Council for a 5-story hotel. So with that, Brad, you can take it away.
Perfect, thank you. All from meeting tonight. It's been a little while, especially since somebody's probably been in front of you speaking and talking about a hotel project that was there in 2019 and 2020 and 21, and here we are in 2022. However, I do, as Joel said, have some good news. We've been working very diligently in the new development group. So some of you were involved as a council from the previous group. This new development group is 102 Brady LLC, as Joel said, was purchased by the owner of my company, which is Lakewood Construction. And we were involved in the construction aspect of the first part. So kind of a quick backstory on some of it, why we took it on, why we saw it, is not only most of you or some of you know I'm from here, want to continue to see Allegan thrive and grow, and so I stood behind the project. But also we were partnered with Safe Harbor, who owned 102 Brady. So that's kind of how the 102 Brady LLC actually gets involved with 101 Brady. So 102 Brady LLC saw that Safe Harbor was going to be the one actually left in the dust when the other developers looked at different options that we didn't feel were quite appropriate, right? And so some of those options that were there were the Hampton Inn Hotel that you saw, and they realized at that time financing and COVID all kind of hit at the same time, just made it an unviable project. Safe Harbor was going to be the one with a building that they felt wasn't quite right. They've always felt like that. As a construction partner that we were with them, that building was too big. So we saw that as an opportunity to help them make sure they got out of there, but we also believed in a hotel. We saw that the opportunity was there, just wasn't the right one. So in the past, about 14 months since we've kind of started and took things over, we've gone through a different market study, a different brand study, and now we're sitting before you to explain what that means. So the first market study that everybody was looking at saw a presentation for a hotel that was 100-plus rooms, Hampton Inn, brand name that everybody kind of knew into that. The second market study that we did was probably a little more appropriate to what Allegan was. We went to a small market-based company out of Wisconsin that understood small markets, not just big market. Let me give you some numbers in front of you and to help you understand that. That market study came back and said, you don't need a 100-room hotel to make Allegan viable for a hotel. You need somewhere in the 50 to 60 range hotel. So then we said, well, how do we find a partner that's going to work through that? What's that look like? I know I go to hotels that seem very large, 4 or 5 stories, but they have 100-plus rooms. So who's that partner that's out there involved with it? And it actually was a brand that had been presented to Allegan previous times, previous past, right, which in Cobblestone. In that, we also explored, though, what does Hampton offer? Do they still have opportunities? Do they have opportunities for small markets? Do they have boutique-type hotels, which that was a niche word in 2019 and 2020. What else is out there for them? We went to another developer who came on and said, hey, we've done this before a little bit on different ends and looked at small markets, so we can help you out with it. And they were partnered with Wyndham. Wyndham also has a challenge because they want 100 rooms. They want, big, they want large to get the brand recognition behind them. Cobblestone in that time frame has always been that steady partner. We do small market. We do just outside the big cities. We do a brand that people are starting to recognize throughout the country, and that the fact that they have 100 and some odd rooms, or 100 and some odd hotels, but don't need the 100 rooms. So they're approaching 170. So if you go into Wisconsin where they're based, you're going to find a lot of them. If you go into Florida, you're going to find one. You come to Michigan, there actually is one. It's in the UP. It wasn't a new build. It was a branded one that somebody wanted to use the Cobblestone brand because it was so close to Wisconsin, so they came over with it. So Cobblestone, who are they? What are they? That's kind of what this snapshot shows you. They fit the floor plan, the lot size, everything that we were looking for and what the market study told us and what businesses in Allegan told us of needing a 55-room as the main thing. They fit under the brand or the height with their brand of a 4-story. Typically, they're 4 stories. That's what you will see any place you go. They offer, great wine bar area. They've got food service, hot breakfast. They kind of remind me of a Drury Inn. People are starting to hear about those. I got a friend who actually works for them out of St. Louis where they're at. They were family-owned, small market. Now you see them lots of places. They're building on Disney. I just was down there 2 weeks ago, and they're right off of Disney. So they're starting to get that brand recognition, but hot breakfast, family style, fit the small market, have lots of opportunities. Here's that dot map. There's 170 that are in operation right now. So if we were to zoom in on it, you would kind of see that they're just outside the big niches, right? They're outside of St. Louis, they're outside of Louisville, they're outside of, the big cities in Wisconsin and Nebraska and throughout. If you zoom in to Michigan and Allegan, what do you see? We're just outside of Kalamazoo, just outside of Grand Rapids, right? That's the part of the slogan into it. So where they're located and what they know is being just outside of those big markets to make sure that it's there, which is very important to making this hotel successful. You have the next one. This is also the look of what Cobblestone you will find. Now this is just a color map onto it, and part of the reason we need your approval so we can get to the next phase with it. But it definitely changes the feel from what you've seen on some of the other highway-type hotels. That was the niche word as well. Nobody wanted. We agree. It needs to fit downtown. It needs to look like it's part of the thing, and it's been here for another 50-plus years already the day it comes online. They have a lot of brick structure. They have a lot of block structure or stone structures or different things like that you would see that fit that feel, all fitting on that lot. There's nothing changing. It's the property that the city sold Nothing else needs to change. That's 147 wide. It's 148, just under. So we've got a half a foot to work with on each side. But it fits right there on the property. The depth is not an issue. And as a matter of fact, I think on the next one you said, Joel, yeah, you can see that parking structures around how it lays into that. It fits and feels exactly what that corner would look like in a downtown area with it. On the back side, you would notice that's where they have some parking. We have a depth that's well enough to get not only that pergola that you saw in that first one that kind of sticks out for a covered area, but also some handicap parking, quick drop-off parking, all within the site that's there and laid out, because the depth is there for that. So everything sits on the lot. It sits there perfectly. The height matches everything. The fit and the feel matches everything. And the size is exactly what we need in a 55-story hotel or 55-room hotel under 4 stories. They're the partners that we've locked in on. The reason you guys are important is because in order for us to go to our next steps, which is MEDC, we're halfway financed through everything. MEDC is on board with it to go back to the bank, to continue to talk to the investors that have said, yeah, we're on board. Tell me what I'm on board with, right? Am I on board with Cobblestone or am I on board with Allegan Hotel 2.0? We just know the Hampton that was there and presented is not the right fit. And so having this new design and this new direction gives us opportunity to make sure that this happens and happens next year in 2023. This is when we plan to start this with the approval. So we got to jump through some hurdles to get to that, and you guys are going to have more hurdles for us in Planning Commission and things like that to make sure we're on par. But knowing we have the approval of the council, yep, this is what we want in town, gives us direction to make sure that we can bring it to town.
So the purpose of it tonight is for council to get this update from Brad and then ask any questions you have. And if you're comfortable with the direction of the hotel, your first meeting in December, we'll come back with a formal, during the regular meeting, a formal request for council to adopt this project and concept, which will allow them to move further down in signing the final documents with the Cobblestone Development Group or the hotel group, go to the MEDC, go to the Planning Commission and Historic District Commission for those approvals, and then go out and secure the final financing through the funders. Because as Brad just mentioned at the end, you can't go ask for funding for something unless council says, yeah, this project's a go. So Brad's here for questions that you may have for, this design, what this would look like. And then as I mentioned, our goal is to bring it back to you for formal approval at your next meeting.
Is there any questions for Brad?
Hi, Brad.
Hi.
So as I understand, Cobblestone has several levels of hotels, and this is what's proposed here is their upscale, is their higher level
Correct.
hotel. So
Yep.
this is going to be a nice facility, but still pretty affordable to stay at.
Yeah, correct. So you're right. They've got technically 4. They're one in Florida, which is their Key West division, which is kind of just odd because everything else is Cobblestone blah, Cobblestone something, right? And then they've got a Key West one down there. I guess they felt it felt better. But the other 2 brands, if you were to go on their website, or the other 2 lines of their brand, if you're going on their website, do look like that Highway Hotel. They kind of are in that more Fairfield end one. This is their upscale version, which is exactly what they call it. And it has that feel, that downtown feel. That's where these are placed, as that picture, projects, that you see, an old historic town and this next to it. It doesn't feel like it's way off out in the distance. So, yeah, this is a very nice one, but they do it and they've done it right. The other part of Cobblestone is they're the brand. They're the builder, which I know is funny because I work for a builder, but we will probably work with them, the people who know best, to help keep costs down to make sure it is. But they're also the operator as well. So they would come in and be able to operate this and know how Cobblestone works and how a small market works, and not just some outside operator that comes in and says, oh yeah, I do hotels, but do you know how to run a hotel in Allegan? There's a difference.
Go ahead, that's okay.
I remember when we were talking about the other version, 1.0. I think they were projecting like 13 jobs or something like that, that it was gonna, do you have any idea how many jobs that this would?
Yeah, so
bring in?
long-term, with them being the operators into it, they're estimating that it would actually be somewhere around 20 to 30. But part of that is you're gonna have cleaning staff that comes in. You're also gonna have support staff and deliveries and things like that would be with it, or meeting coordinations. On a full-time basis, regular time, you're somewhere between 8 and 13, like you were talking about, between front desk and things like that. Once they get, it'll start off smaller on the front end. Once they get running, getting an understanding where they can have, multi-levels of it, so your day operator is not working 24 hours and trying to get the market up and running, then they'll add in other shifts into it. And that's where you can get up into that 20 to 30 person opportunity.
Does anyone else have any questions? Go ahead, Dave.
Thank you for the presentation, Brad. I was curious, what will the relationship be between 101 Brady and 102 Brady?
Yeah,
moving forward?
great question. So, really kind of nothing. The only difference, and part of the other thing that I didn't talk about, and you reminded me, is parking, right? So last time parking was a bigger question. At a 100-room hotel, we needed about 80 parking spaces with this. We have a good talking point and relationship going on with Payroll for the other lot in there to help offset with it. But also on the same end, there will be some of the 30 parking spaces, if an event is not going on, that will be having, that the hotel can use that on a Tuesday night. If nothing is happening, then they would be able to use that parking. But Cobblestone has a meeting space inside of it. So the original plan, that was a bigger concern, is that they wanted a larger meeting space with it. But they have one inside that fits this floor plan, which is still crazy when I was looking at how much work we were doing on the other end to make all this stuff fit, and it just wasn't fitting. So they don't need to. The big advantage to both is one works better with the other, right? So the event space is still planning on moving forward onto it. Again, my owner, Nick Nykirk, who you will see at the next meeting, it plans to develop the event space into it. But it's kind of, that becomes very marketable and equitable with the hotel across the way. Same thing, the hotel's looking at it, and Cobblestone's telling us, yeah, you got an event space we can book out, which is right across the street. It's easy for us to flip-flop that and say that's a very marketable piece, but they're two independent pieces, which is great, because you don't want the hotel to also be dependent only on making sure that the event space is running, or vice versa. If they don't have a filled event and they don't have a filled hotel, then there can be some infighting. So it separates them, but there will be some coordination that's going to be key to both. A hotel being there makes the event space go. Event space being there makes the hotel go.
Thank you.
You talked about handicap parking or somewhere. I don't know exactly where that is on the property. Is there any chance that we would get a basic sketch of what their idea is? I don't need a full-blown drawing, just a outline of like, okay, we want to put parking here, or we're going to cut into the property somewhat and then have street parking that's technically private parking, that's their own. What's kind of the plan there?
Yeah, so we will want to work with the city on that, right, through plan design and things like that. But there is enough space where we talked about, and talking about streetscape, you guys were mentioning it, one of the things that came up was part of their branding is to have a pergola so that you can drive through it and have a drop-off cover area. That's basically everywhere they go. We've asked before, is that going to be an issue on, if we don't have it? They only have one out of their 170 that don't have it. There's a lot of stuff that happens in that street out front, so we can't come into it, so we have to bring that on. So in order to get some covered, drop-off areas part of it and on the property, it just naturally shows for other spots, because we're gonna come into the property so far with a drop lane that it will allow it. So yes, we will come up with a design on that. Part of the approval is it's a $60,000 investment just to get to the point of the next step. And so we want to pull that trigger. We're ready. We have all the cobblestones ready to go, but we need your direction to say, yeah, okay, we're going to back this, because we don't want to spend $60,000 and then say, nah, the cobblestone's not what we wanted in downtown Allegan. So there will be other opportunities to see exactly what we plan for the site.
Kind of the idea is that the hotel would be set back from the property line, not right up at the front street.
Correct, yeah.
So
And that's intentional as well, right? Because
put a
what's the
pergola
best
out.
asset? Out back with the water and the bridge. So even in the back kind of bar area. It's a food service more than a bar. Public can walk into it, everybody can with a patio, but if you got a Perigo business client, a hospital business client, somebody like that wants a drink after work, you can go inside, grab it there, and then sit right out there. You don't want to be 50 feet back or have to walk a long way. So it's intentionally going to be in the back too, because that's the best asset with a patio out back, but that allows for the parking to be able to go
So
through.
the pergola would be in the back?
No,
Oh, in the front.
the driveway
Very
up front would be, where the
Okay, that's
portico
why I'm
is.
trying to just picture, like, where is
And then
this
in the
on-
back area, there would just be an outdoor seating
Seating,
patio.
okay.
Yep.
That's
It'll be more flat like that. You're kind of looking at the back, right, of that picture there is really what you're kind of looking at. And then where those two giant windows in the front corner are basically where their breakfast area and bar area is in this setup. And then you can envision ours, you would just walk out to a patio out back on the water.
Is there any further questions for Brad? Okay,
Great.
thank you, Brad.
Thank you.
So if I'm reading council correctly, you're okay with the direction we're going? So there won't be any surprises at the December meeting? Because you will be asked to make a formal, more or less, we'll have a resolution where you'll be adopting this vision.
Everybody good?
Just, one process question. So you had mentioned Planning Commission and HDC weighing in. What would it mean for us to do our approval before they've looked at it?
Doesn't mean anything. So before they go and invest the engineering studies for the cobblestone brand, before they go and invest the architectural, design costs, $60,000 worth of cost, that, they need to make sure this council's okay, because you have the ultimate say on what the design and development happens at 101. So it would be foolish to spend $100,000 plus on architectural and engineering studies for this building. If this council's like, we're not supportive of this direction, but I'm seeing more than 5 shake their head yes, that you're comfortable with this direction. So I just wanted to get you all shaking your head the right way.
Do you hear us?
Yeah.
Okay.
I catch your tail. Don't play poker with me.
Okay. So moving on to item number 5 on our agenda is the discussion regarding the potential relocation of select county offices from the City of Allegan. I see some county members here and.
So I'll get it started if you don't mind, Mayor
No, go
Galloway.
ahead.
I almost
Go
said
ahead.
pro tem, I caught myself.
That's okay.
Yeah, so this item's been in front of council a couple times for discussion, usually during roundtable discussion. And then I reached out to County Administrator Rob Sorrow to invite him here this evening to do 2 things. One, just give a high-level summary of where the county is in their discussion, and then be available for questions from council members. So with that, Rob, feel free to come up to the podium. Again, just a high-level summary is what I've asked him to touch on, and then, really be available for questions from council members, because I know we've heard some information before that.
Okay, and then maybe when Rob's finished, we'll open it up for some public comment, and then you can come back up and answer all of our questions.
Excellent.
Perfect.
Thank you.
Thank you, Rob.
All right. Thank you. Thank you, Manager Dye and the rest of the council members for your time this evening. Being the 4th largest growing county in the state right now, it's reasonable that we would always be looking at, our facilities plans. And we've done a lot of planning and execution over particularly the last, 25 years that I can speak to. And we have long maintained, both of the campuses that we have, in addition to some other sites. And so I would say at this point, really 3 campuses that we would consider ourselves having. With that, there's always been some degree of moves, changes along the way. And what we're working on currently faces the reality of not only being the 4th fastest growing county in the state, but recognizing the judicial needs that exist when you're in that, that category. And so even back from some of our joint discussions around the 2007 or so timeframe when we moved a number of administrative offices, out to the complex. There were a lot of concerns at that point of, well, what would the future hold then for this building, and what does that mean for the complex? We worked together at that time with the city. We even passed a resolution at that time, potentially exploring a joint county-city building because of just the concerns of offices moving. Over time, what was recognized was a lot of the concerns, really didn't materialize in a significant way. We had moves where we brought some more court offices down to move again towards this judicial need. But HR, finance, administration, equalization, over time, they've all have, been out at the complex, and it's worked, quite well. And we still maintain at least the same occupancy within, the Allegan County building, as it's currently called downtown. However, the judicial needs do continue to progress. And I think we're all aware of, a lot of the advancements in technology for certain services. The city has deployed much of that, county's deployed much of that. We've all been faced with even the reality of mobility and remote work options. But when it comes to the judicial system, that is still one of the more challenging areas to really change that, in-person dynamic. And so while in 2007, we declared that the courthouse the Allegan County building would remain a courthouse, and while we have continued to plan, with that in mind, the reality is that any non-court offices within the courthouse, we have other options for at this point, but the judicial needs continue to grow. And so our planning, fast forwarding, lent us around to 2019. It was wonderful. We had the city manager, the mayor join us out there and talked about the city's vision for now where we're going. And some of those needs has changed from some of the historical challenges. Historically, it was a very government-focused city, really, with a lot of reliance on what was happening at the county, Monday through Friday, 8 to 5. But it always, even as a former city resident, it always kind of left this void that when the county was closed or it was late in the evening, things changed quite a bit. There was an obvious reliance. So in 2019, in one of our planning sessions, we discussed that the reality is the Allegan County footprint downtown really should not be expanding, in large part because I even see on your goals for 22-23 looking at goal number 2 and really trying to consider, what are the different ways to develop the city? How can the county also be a good partner with that? How can the city be a good partner to us? And along the way from that time, city manager's made himself very available for discussions. That's been much appreciated. And we've tried to keep each other in the loop on, on our plans. The one thing at that time we didn't know for sure yet was the space that we would have available to us. And as currently now On Point, but formerly Community Mental Health, was able to secure its plans for moving about 125 folks to the former Shopco location, that really put us in a planning mode of saying, well, we had considered different options. We looked at building within the property. We looked at building on our, what we call our overflow lot still that could very well, who knows, for the city have other needs that we could look at in the future. But at the end of the day, everything brought about this high cost of construction. And once we were faced with the reality that as a result of the CMH move, we have 22,000 square feet of already existing taxpayer-owned and paid-for space, that really put us in the mode of saying, well, that makes sense. Very similar to how things have eventually happened with the Sheriff's Office and Corrections Center. But again, all of the planning collaboration we've done, we've tried to look at things. Obviously, the mental health clinic that was downtown was certainly within, city limits, things like that. But we understood sort of in good faith that probably wasn't the best location, and we were able to get that back in a business-owned type situation. We do have other properties, obviously, in the broader county seat. Whether you look at that in any type of historical sense, like I said, we have a couple of different complexes. But running through all of the options we've looked at, even bringing in and, you know, including the city on these planning events that, you know, we held at the Griswold and things. It really just comes down to the fact of how do we accommodate the needs of the judicial while also continuing to maintain, if not expand, general county government services to make them more accessible to people. And what our current plans now are looking at is, you know, being able to utilize existing space to keep that construction renovation cost low for the taxpayers, but also being able to look at, and resulting from some discussions with the city, being able to maintain at least access to the current general services that exist while being able to have general office operations utilizing the other complex. When we look at this hybrid, it's very similar to what other counties in our situation, you know, may have done. It frankly expands services in many ways. And when I talk about expanding services, I want to keep that focus again on the importance of the technology access. Because while we've gotten, you know, some concerns about, well, folks may have to drive 3 miles this direction or 5 miles that direction, we're ever mindful of saying, why on a county-wide basis do we have to require people to drive 20 miles, if not 30 miles, to do certain, you know, basic functions? And so while sometimes that travel is necessary, the reality is we've invested hundreds of thousands of dollars into online access systems, payment systems, things of that nature, and we want to continue to do that. So, so where we're at in the process is we're working with Whiteman at this point as an architect. We've engaged all of the court stakeholders, elected officials, stakeholders into the process to collect their needs and input. Whiteman has developed, you know, some preliminary concepts that the county will be reviewing. But we've taken, you know, some of the city's input as well through, you know, administrative discussions and looking at, you know, what we can do downtown here, still trying to maintain the parking area that has been mutually, you know, beneficial. And, you know, really just are excited to let the planning process continue and would hope as such that you would continue to just work with us in identifying any needs, concerns, or, you know, as for tonight, at least questions that we can help address. So a little bit of the history, a little bit of the planning and where we're at, and we just think there'll be a really nice balance in the end of all this that will allow us to, you know, reutilize existing space, meet our judicial needs, which includes, by the way, the addition of a new circuit court judge, which had already passed one vote and will likely be up for a second vote early December here through the legislature. So you could see, even though currently, if you were to walk through the courthouse, you can see conferences being held in the hallways, things that, you know, I won't take your time to elaborate. You can see it for yourself. But the reality is, think about adding in another judgeship and courtroom into that same mix. You know, we've got a short time to kind of get these things accommodated. Are there any questions that I can address or come back to the podium to address?
Go ahead, Delora.
Could you just specify what offices you're planning on moving? And you'd mentioned a hybrid option. What exactly is that?
Sure. So the offices that we have discussed moving are the treasurer, drain, register of deeds, and vital records. And I do want to clarify sort of on the opposite, we have not identified that we would be moving the clerk, because the clerk does function as the clerk of the court, so.
And as far as the hybrid option, are you then intending to have an office for each of those here?
So our designs right now, again, based on feedback and such, would be to at least consider, again, the board has to make, we're pretty early in some of the processes, but to consider, yes, a service access space was still within the courthouse where people could still come and do transactions and such, or visit with their elected official at that area within the courthouse. There would be a smaller footprint than what exists today, but access there nonetheless. And at the same time, people could choose to do that at the Dumont Lake location too.
Okay. Thank you, Rob.
Thank you.
Did you have something, Raj?
Well, I was just going back to that. Would there be a more limited accessibility there? Would there be more limited hours with the satellite
So
offices here?
So really, the way it works in the, just overall structure of the elected offices in the county, or even if you look at it from co-employment relationship, I mean, the board bears sole responsibility to provide the space, allocate space, make those decisions, but the elected official chooses how to operate, their office from a service delivery. So all I can say within that is the county would seek to design space where on any regular hour type basis or an ongoing, daily basis, those offices could provide, staff there to operate that. Now, I can't speak to what the elected officials would do or how they would run it, and even now, sometimes some have summer hours or things that change. But I would say that the space would be certainly able to accommodate a regular schedule, and it would just be more how they choose to do their staffing of that location. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think so. My concern would be that it would be an office only and name only, and then people wouldn't really have access here. It would just be a permanently closed window that.
Well, I assure you, in as precious as space is right now, my hope would be that if the county provides for that space, that it'll be used to the optimal delivery of service to the customers.
Great. One more. So the two big issues, I think, that have come up as we've thought about this and as we've had conversations is, one is that the City of Allegan is supposed to be the county seat, and I know we've gone back and forth with that, and there's been discussion about that. The other has been the loss of people downtown who are going to utilize, buy lunch or whatever downtown. Do you have any idea? First of all, I'd like to hear about your thoughts on the county seat issue, but also with the moving of offices out and then the new court that would be coming in. Do you have any idea what the net loss would be in employees at the county building or the Allegan building downtown?
Right. So a couple things there. Regarding the county seat, I mean, I think the best way to address it is to say there's a lot of history. I mean, Allegan County has been, around for a long time, even predates the establishment of the city. That said, our legal opinion at this point gathered would say that we have, some flexibility, at least with both of these locations operating the way that they have during that history. I think I would also explain it by saying, even upon your own council's review, there's a lot of credence lent to the, I guess we'll call it Ottawa County opinion, that would suggest that, even this hybrid model is a viable option. I would say that the next thing I would add to that would be to say, whatever one may consider the true historical county seat, the fact remains that the county does own property and properties, within the city. And I asked the board on, what are some of the key things that we can say for sure at this point? One thing we can say for sure is that those offices as a whole will not remain in the courthouse. We have to meet our needs for the judiciary. That's just as mandated, and we need to do that. The other thing I can say is that at this point, based on board direction, that we're not going to build new construction. It's simply not able to be justified when we have the space that we have. And so those are some of the things that we know. So what does that mean then for us? It means that, again, we're trying to look at this hybrid option, and we think it's viable. We think there's a lot of merit, even, legally, to just kind of, for lack of a better term, just not have to even approach that issue. But I think it's also worth noting that we do own, material-sized building at 640 River Street, and that is within the city of Allegan, regardless of what we consider the county seat, and the county could explore options there as well. But one thing that I've been, given direction is that the option of no change for this building is, not an option. Does that at least address in general the county seat without getting too much into the legal?
Yeah, and I know we've had that conversation. I just thought it would be good to address it.
Yeah,
now.
that's worked on that at staying as high level as I can while still answering. The other portion of your question, here's the thing, the commerce side really becomes a bit, anecdotal. I mean, you can have a certain number of employees at that building that eat out every day, and you can have 50 employees that don't eat out at all. It's just, the reality is that in terms of numbers, we're really talking all combined about 18 employees. The customers that go with that, it's really a far stretch to try, for any argument to say that people either then will spend money in Allegan or won't spend money in Allegan because of just that move. A lot of folks have to pass right by here anyway. If we do the hybrid, they can still come to the city. Some folks may not come at all as the technology increases. I think my understanding is that's why the city's goals have been more, let's try to develop the space and be an attraction, destination type city. And I would say that I thought it was pretty, it was reliable in the DDA study that was done. If you really look at the governmental impact, at least on the retail market, it wasn't particularly significant even in the broader market area. I think it was about 9.04% versus manufacturing at closer to 30%. So again, it's hard to say exactly that impact, but for us, we're looking at the holistic system, so it's a difficult question to answer. We see it as county government overall is bringing 125 people right down to the outer skirt of the area, only taking 18 out, but then the 18 is going to be filled with the court services.
Yeah, I guess that was my
the
question,
judge,
because
yeah.
I'm sorry, I mean, interrupt
you're
you.
fine.
But the purpose of my question was because the conversation has been how many employees are being
Right.
moved out, but had we considered how many employees would come in with the new court? And I didn't know what
Right.
that net loss would be.
Yeah, I mean, and that's why I say, I right away, I still, from the county's view, have to look and say, well, it's obviously a significant net gain because of what cause and effect is. If you leave CMH out of it for the moment, the fact remains that, you're still likely to see the same number of employees, if not more, even if they're not county employees proper, because of the court services that are looking like, for example, mediation services. If they're able to do that within the courthouse, it not only brings the mediators, into play, but all the parties that now can come to this location rather than having to go to Holland, for example. So my answer would be, I don't believe there's going to be a net loss, to be honest. I think it's really more of a net gain is what it comes down to.
Thank you, Rob.
Thank you.
Okay, at this time, I think we'll open it up for public comment, Rob, and then we'll let you come back up and we'll address some more questions. Okay, thank you, Rob.
Hi, my name is Sally Brooks. I'm the Allegan County Treasurer, and that county seat was dedicated in 1838, and that public square, I have a map in the office of it, if anybody questions where the county seat is. I serve as a constitutional office. I believe the Constitution says that my principal office has to be in the county seat at the Department of Justice, along with my clerk and along with my drain commissioner has the same language. So that's my course. I'm the opposite side of this conversation. When that architect came through, I asked if they were going to consider hybrids because I know our court systems have changed a lot. They have changed the rules of how they operate. They no longer have to have those hearing cases. They use that, it's court office Zooms, but that kind of programming changes now. And that was not part of this design effort. For my office and my service of taxpayers, I send out 20,000 delinquent tax bills every year. And at the end of 2 years, if you haven't paid your taxes, I take your property and sell it. So my concern is for a taxpayer coming in, I want to make sure they talk to my people. I don't want to be at some service center somewhere where the drain office or clerk gal may answer my delinquent tax questions. I think it's important. I think the Constitution put me there for a reason. My goal is to have this answer of the county seat taken up in the courts is called a declaration of judgment, and we'll see who comes up with the right answer there. If you have any questions, feel free to come in the office. Thank you.
Thank you, Sally. Is there any more public comment on this issue?
Hi, I'm Denise Metamar. I'm the Allegan County Drain Commissioner. And according to the drain code, the drain office is to be in the county seat. And I believe the county seat is in the city of Allegan. We hold, I want to say, maybe 4 or 5 days of review for property owners a year in the drain office. And we can have anywhere from 15 to 30 people coming in to review their assessments for that project and stuff. So it would be more convenient and stuff for us to be located in the city for the constituents to come in and do that. The last 2 years, we've assessed out $1.7 million in work that the drain office has done. We have 5 employees, 2 maintenance people that go out and work on the drains, and we got 3 people in the office to take care of people coming in. If we are to be divided and trying to do work from 2 different places, I think it'd be almost impossible to do with, so few employees for our office. So, thank you.
Thank you, Denise. Okay, Rob, do you want to come back up? And we have some more questions up here for you. If you'd like to address anything that was said, or Dave has some questions and Delora has some questions.
First of all, thank you for coming tonight, and thank you to all the elected officials who came from the county as well. It's great to have you here and providing information. I just want to clarify one thing. Is there currently a legal challenge to the moves that are proposed?
I guess the only thing I can say is speaking to the treasurer's comments that, they, I guess, question if the offices were moved out of the city of Allegan, if that would meet the constitutional requirements. I think that's the legal challenges that was referred to. Is that correct, Sal? Okay.
And so that's still being decided?
At this point, the county doesn't have any knowledge of that being formally through the courts. I can tell you that the same Constitution provisions that provide for those offices to be in the county seat also share that question can be taken to the vote of the people. And so at the end of the day, that frankly, the county is not sure that a legal determination is going to do much in this case. Because again, 640 River Street is clearly in the city limits. We don't think it's the better of the options, but if we were forced to, we can certainly utilize that property. The other thing is we could go to a vote of the people and say, do you want to spend, 20, 30, 40, $50 million on a building, or just make the county seat inclusive of both locations? There's options. So I think even, quite frankly, I don't think it's as simple as just getting a declaratory statement, because there's simply too many options outside of that to be explored.
Okay, thank you.
We do have a nice basement here, so, and it's
We-
unfinished
we-
and
we
torn
have-
out, so at any point, it's
We've
just right
had those
across the street.
discussions.
We have actually even tried to look at that as well.
I'm trying to get that space used at some point.
Okay, Delora, I think you have some questions.
I do, yeah. So I've got like the constitutional, the statute right here, Article 7 of local government, and it does clearly say that the sheriff, county clerk, county treasurer, and register of deeds shall hold their principal offices at the county seat.
Correct.
So that's been my concern with this the entire time. Not saying that like the economic impact isn't of a concern, because that is as well. Earlier you mentioned that things kind of shut down when the county's shut down. So if you're proposing to take many services out of that building, that does you know, it's not anecdotal. You actually said that it does impact the traffic in town. So, and I'm not just talking retail, we're talking gas stations, we're talking restaurants, everything. And I come from this from a really interesting perspective because I have worked at the county and I now work at On Point, so I can kind of talk about some of those differences. Going to On Point, we have roughly 140 employees at this time. That building will not house all of those employees. Most of our employees are remote and are community-based, so they won't actually be there. And our clients don't typically go outside much from their appointments. So just saying that it is going to have an impact, I don't have any doubt that there will be an impact on our downtown businesses. You also mentioned having some different options available as far as technologically wise, and we all know that broadband is a huge problem in this county. So to expect that everyone's going to be able to access online payment options, it's just, to me, it's not feasible right now. And I had talked to security previous to leaving the county, and they said that 200 to 750 people walk through that door daily. So that's going to be a huge thing. I think the treasurer was seeing roughly 20,000 people a year as far as customers. So that does have a huge impact. I'm very concerned about the county seat designation. I actually have a letter from you from May 2020 in which you clearly stated that the city of Allegan was the county seat. So, and you had mentioned in a meeting also that you built the sheriff's office here because it was in the county seat and it had to be here. So I'm just gonna say that that's my big concern, is you move those offices out of here, you're moving them out of the county seat, which they are required to be in. So if you're doing some sort of a hybrid option, that is what Ottawa County does. Their main offices are still in Grand Haven. If you do a really quick Google search, you can see all their offices and where they're at. They do have offices at both locations. So if that's what you're intending to do, then that makes a bit of a difference. But as far as the judicial needs, I mean, family court used to be out at that complex previously. There's an entire garden level there with front of the court, probate court, family court, probation that are not required to be in Allegan City. So that's an option as far as moving other offices. I know you've got space. I know you want to utilize it. I just hope that it's in a way that follows statute and still sees us as that county seat. So.
May I?
Yeah, go ahead.
So a lot to unpack there. So I want to go back, so I appreciate, I guess, reiterating my comments, but let me kind of go back to what they actually were. So the hours was what I was referring to, that 8 to 5. I don't see it in the city's plan to be an 8 to 5 city. The county's not shutting down offices. I think that's been made abundantly clear. And so the continuance of, unless, I mean, are you committing to leave your offices open till midnight or 10 p.m. if you were to, okay, I didn't think so. So the reality is that I think that's the part I'm saying is kind of anecdotal, is that, look, Monday through Friday, 8 to 5, to, Councilmember Byrd's point, it's not going to be a difference in terms of the numbers. I do understand that CMH On Point has, 140 total, they have remote, but I think we can agree that at least 18 will be there, according to the director, and quite frankly, probably at least 2 to 3 times as much would be present in the building at all time, even though half, are out and about. So again, these are all great points, but I think that's the problem, is all along the way, it's kind of been, sort of point for point. The reality is, I think our proven experience of moving these offices and overcoming the challenges speaks louder, truthfully than anything. As for the county seat, and I appreciate that, again, we've discussed that, and I was the one that actually said, well, here's the reality. If you Google Ottawa county seat, it's going to come up as Grand Haven. I maintain that the county seat of name, if you were to Google it, comes up as the City of Allegan. I mean, it would be senseless not to acknowledge that. I think most reports, most state of the counties, most annual reports, most things would say that. No different than it would say for Ottawa County. Yet, what's the reality of that? Their offices are at the West Olive location, not in Grand Haven. Their primary office access still remains in the courthouse, and on a prorated basis, when you consider the size of the counties, our plan of that space is is quite frankly, probably even more than they allocated for their primary offices. In that office they created, they could maybe staff as many as 10. They often have staff of at least 2. And so from that perspective, you know, I think Allegan County, the plans that we're looking at are every bit as much compliant. And honestly, I would go as far as to say that City's Council, you know, has reviewed that himself and, you know, spoke to that topic as well. And puts a lot of legitimacy into that being compliant with the county seat constitution. So, thank you.
Thank you, Rob. Does anybody have anything else for Rob or any more discussion we'd like to have at this time? Okay. Thank you, Rob.
Thank you, Mayor. I appreciate it.
Joel, do you have anything you want to add?
No, I was just going to offer that, again, the reason we put this on here is because it's been discussed before. I believe it was the county clerk, register of deeds, something, Bob Janetsky, election coordinator, has been passing around a resolution that's made it to my desk 3 times now. One of the resolutions that made it to my desk interchanged the word Allegan Township and City of Allegan like 3 or 4 times in that resolution. And it was when I was off that Tracy Stoll, my finance director, my interim city manager, and I'm not here, said this has to go to council right now. And I said, well, let's have a discussion with the county here in an open meeting, because I'm not quite sure where council wants us to go with that. I don't know if this is, again, the city charter is clear. I can give advice. I can partake in meetings. I think there's too much still unanswered out there for the city to really make any kind of statement of some kind. You know, Councilmember Hands, you mentioned the basement. We've had that conversation. I've actually sent over the square footage. I've offered to host their architects and walk down what we call the lower level. It's not the basement, it's a lower level here. It housed some great meeting rooms for Payroll, which is a $4 billion a year company. So if it was good enough for that company to do work in our lower level here, I'm not sure why it wouldn't be good enough for other public servants. We've talked about River Avenue, that's in the city limits. And I would just be very clear, it was in 2019, I think Rachel McKenzie was the mayor at that time, when we were invited to discuss. And the statement at that time, because when I was hired in the city manager profile, it was grow the economy, period. And so I made it very clear to the county administrator at that time and those that were in the room, love having the county government offices here. Please don't grow your footprint, because we need to grow our tax base. We need to grow jobs. We need to grow housing and apartments and residents in our downtown. And it would be a shame if they, you know, buy private property to convert it to a government use. And, you know, that would just be frustrating for us as we look to grow our downtown. And that's where that message was coming from.
And it doesn't look like that's an option anyway for the county right now.
It does not
because
look
they've
like
not-
that's an
right.
option. But that was the message back in 2019 when the city said, and we don't want to be a government-focused town. We want to be a destination. We want to be 7 days a week. And at 5 o'clock, we don't want the sidewalks rolled up. We want people walking up and downtown. We're not there yet, but we're getting there. So.
Okay. Thank you, Joel. Did you have something else, Rob?
Just to speak to reinforce the manager's statements, our commission really took that to heart as well. And we, you know, asked for some clarifications, and we wanted to make sure that we were trying to work together and honor within that. So you're right, we have pretty much not been looking at trying to purchase property. But I think it's worth noting that the county does own one of the few vacant lots in Allegan, in the city of Allegan. And frankly, you know, we've sold buildings, we've sold at least 2 downtown in my tenure, and then at least, I'm sorry? Oh, sorry. You know, we've sold a couple of buildings downtown, we've sold the CMH clinic in the city of Allegan. And one of the primary reasons that we continue to hold on to the vacant property is because of that sort of fear and concern of, you know, future limitations of what properties, you know, when will we need it? I think it all is very interesting. When I look at your goals, I look at our goals, there is a win-win to be had. I can't speak for the board in this sense because they haven't taken it up as a topic, but I can say that we've at least discussed the fact that at some point, you know, that's a property that has developmental value. And so that's part of what we're trying to keep in mind as we go through this process, as the manager said, not buy other properties, but what would expanding our footprint, you know, really mean if we were to try to do that downtown? And it really means either not having the nice larger parking lot at the courthouse, which we don't consider an option at this point, or building on the overflow, which given the size of that lot would have to be a multi-story building, but will also sort of preserve it for our purposes forever as a government non-tax property. And, yeah, we're just hoping that within all of the things that we're looking at, that there's a win-win to be had all over. So, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Okay, moving on down to the next item on our agenda. Number 6 is discussion on proposal from Abonmarche regarding engineering services for the Riverfront Boardwalk. And Doug's going to take this. Hey, Doug.
As you recall, Abonmarche did an inspection on the boardwalk back in August. At the following meeting, they gave a presentation, and in that presentation, they had 5 different recommendations for that boardwalk area. 3 were basically maintenance that we feel we can do in-house. The other 2 would be structural. There'd be structural repairs, structural reinforcements. So we reached out to Abonmarche, asking for a quote to do the design bidding for the project, and they shot back what you see up on the screen. For the construction documents, $12,000. For the bidding process and contractor recommendation, $4,000. Then they added on the structural construction administration, so once the project is going, they would do some site visits. So we bring it to your just consideration, just for your information, I guess, and I would expect to see it on a future meeting for approval, if you feel it's warranted, if you want to head that direction.
I think we talked about this before, but we have money in a budget for this, correct, for maintenance on the
So we have a
bridges, or
small amount of money set aside for
5,000.
boardwalk maintenance. I think it's around 5,000 for board replacements.
Right.
Is where we are. This is a much larger, you know, first step. I mean, this is spending $20,000 for what I'm gonna call engineering of structural changes, go out for bid. We don't know what those costs are gonna come in. But this at least will get us going down that path to correcting some of the structural stuff. We do have significant fund balance right now, as you'll recall from our audit report that happened at your last meeting, where we can absorb this $20,000. I want to caution council, we can absorb this money, not knowing what the total cost is going to be. There could be some sticker shock that happens with that part, you know, so we're not, and no one can give us a good estimate of where we're going. I mean, if you looked at the tree or obstacle removal report for the airport, you know, most of the bids were sub 100,000 and one came in at 1.3 million. So, but this is something I think, and Doug and I have talked about this, I believe this is work that we need to do. To
So
at
you
least,
believe it's worth
this
spending,
this investment,
see how many hundreds of thousands we might be spending?
or 30,000. We just don't know what that number is.
Right. Okay. So, do we have any questions for Doug? Any?
I mean, $20,000 is a lot of money, but that is such an asset to the riverfront and what we're building that whole park around. I think we have to do this to do due diligence just to find out what we don't know yet. But I mean, I think we need to do it.
I think if we were to do this, I would want it lined itemed off by task, because we first need the construction documents, and then we're gonna have a better idea once we have that, probably what the costs are gonna be more like and then we'll decide if we want Abonmarche to oversee it, or if we go a different route of a design build to say, here's the design build. So I think it would be best to be line itemed, and then once we get the first item done, we could probably have a good understanding of the total cost, and then we'll figure out where that lands, because the other parts are, looks like administration if we proceed with
Yeah.
whatever they're recommending. So that's why I line item it.
So we have a standing meeting with Tony McGee from Abonmarche on Wednesdays. And we will negotiate with him or just tell him, you know, we're gonna wanna massage your proposal a little bit, so it's 12,000 for this. And if we decide to move forward, up to this, and if we decide to move forward, up to that.
Yeah, that's more what I'm looking, because it's, I don't know when we get it back, what it's gonna look like as far as the cost and where it's gonna
Yeah.
land in our budget years to go, well, we're gonna have to wait on this, so we know that it's not structurally incompetent, we just know we wanna do these improvements to increase its structural load capabilities. But I don't wanna have to say, we're doing it all, and then it's really 3 different tasks. I see there are totally separate things that go on.
The proposal you'll get at your December meeting, your first meeting in December, will just be to approve a $12,000 structural, construction documents, and then they can ask for permission to move forward at a previous meeting if council wants to authorize going out for bids and so forth. That should address concerns.
Sounds good.
Okay. Thank you, Doug.
Thank you.
Moving on down to number 7, discussion on rate increase for election inspectors and chairpersons. Michaela, you gonna take this?
Yes, so historically, the city has paid election inspectors and election chair people, a rate of $10 an hour, and then paid them $10 an hour for each training they go to as well. So they just report those hours and they would get paid for that. And recently, I looked into what some other municipalities around here pay their election inspectors, because coming from another municipality myself, the township that I used to work for paid more than $10 an hour. And so I just wanted to kind of put my feelers out to see what, what's the pay rate around here. And so you can see on the screen, I got numbers from Allegan Township, City of Otsego, and City of Wayland. And we are substantially lower than those other municipalities. So at this time, my recommendation would be to move election inspectors to a rate of $14 an hour, and then chair people who have more responsibility. They're essentially like the mid-level manager of election day. So they still report to me, but they oversee what's going on in the precinct, and they're kind of my eyes while I'm not in there. So they do have more responsibility, so that's why they would be paid more, or why I would push for them to be paid more. And then additionally, I think it's a good idea to just set trainings at a set pay. I found that that is something that other municipalities also do, rather than paying an hourly rate, to just say, every time you go to a training, you'll be paid this amount. And then another thing to consider when I talked to City of Otsego is they actually close their city hall on election day, and they have their regular full-time employees work as election inspectors, which is also another option that the city could explore. I've encountered some issues with having to recruit more inspectors for elections, and this would be a way that we could solve that problem, because I would essentially double the amount of election inspectors I'd be able to pull from. So I guess at the moment, I'm just looking for you guys to maybe discuss, see how you feel about potentially seeing a rate increase for the election inspectors.
I personally feel, obviously, they need a rate increase. I thought the $14 sounded fair. I would have to ask about bringing the employees in, though. I believe they make more than $14 an hour.
So in Otsego, they're
But
paid their
would we-
current rate.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's what I'm saying. So,
And it would be an option to do a shift type thing. So election inspectors don't necessarily have to work all day, but, you know, during the rush of normal work hours, I could have regular city hall employees working during that time, but then they wouldn't necessarily have to stay the whole day. So they wouldn't necessarily have to be paid overtime at that time.
So if you close the office, it wouldn't be an option. They would have to work the election,
They would be
correct?
working, yes.
Okay.
And
Cindy?
And as we see what happens with Proposal 2 with extended days of election, this may become more of a larger issue. I'm not quite sure how that's gonna look. Is that gonna look like what we currently do, which allows people to just get an absentee, fill it out, and hand it back to you? Or is it gonna mean that we have to have tabulators and everything all running and inspectors here, which makes a big difference on, and how
Sure.
supposedly the state's supposed to compensate us for it, so I'm still waiting to figure out what's gonna happen there.
Yep, and I haven't heard anything different, so I'm sure people at the state level are gonna figure those out, those issues out, and then get back to us on that later, but
As well as now it could possibly cause overtime.
right.
Because if they're here all week for 40 hours plus, we're gonna run into that next.
So if council's okay with the 14 and 16, we'll go ahead and put that into a report and bring that back at your first meeting in December for you to take action.
Anybody really have a problem with that?
Yeah, and we'll cross the closing City Hall bridge closer to the election.
Have you reached out to the employees about that at all?
No, but I know that more than half of the current city hall employees have served as election inspectors in the past,
Okay.
for some of my predecessors, so it's something that wouldn't be completely foreign to them. And I wouldn't necessarily, I don't know. Yeah, so it's an option.
That's okay,
Yeah.
all right, that's okay, thank you. Thanks, Michaela. Okay, moving on down, we got real quick here, to review the October revenue and expenditure report.
Standard report that's in your packet for the second meeting of every month that highlights our R&E final balances for the previous month. So this is October's revenue and expenditure report. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out to the finance director, Tracy Stahl.
Thank you, Joel.
Thank you.
And number 9 is review of the council agenda for the regular meeting. Did anybody have any questions on that? Don't have any changes or any?
So very quickly, I sent an email out this afternoon. We would like to amend the agenda and under written petitions, a request from Joe and Deb Leverence. With last week being a short week and short-staffed, that one item didn't make it on the agenda, unfortunately. But that was in your email, and they will be here in their written petitions. You will have an amended agenda for you.
Thank you. Okay, thank you. It is 6:53. I'm going to go ahead and adjourn the meeting. We will reconvene the regular meeting at 7 o'clock. It is 7 o'clock. I'm going to call our regular meeting to order. Michaela, would you like to do roll call, please?
Sure. Councilmember Zeter.
Present.
Councilmember Hands.
Present.
Councilmember Andrus. Here. Councilmember Redding. Here. Councilmember Morgan.
Present.
Mayor Pro Tem Byrd.
Here.
And Mayor Galloway.
Here.
You have a quorum.
Thank you. At this time, if everyone would please stand, we'll say the Pledge of Allegiance, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, everyone. Next on the agenda is the approval of our agenda. Approval of the regular council meeting agenda for November 28th. We do have an amendment to that. It will be 10A. Request from Joe and Deb Leverence. If I could get a motion, please.
I'll make a motion to approve tonight's agenda with the stated addition of 10A.
Support.
It has been moved and supported. All in favor, please signal by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion passes. Next on the agenda is item 5. 5A is approval of the study session minutes from November 14th, 2022 council meeting. Was there any changes or anything? Okay, could I get a motion, please?
So moved.
Support.
We have a motion and support. All in favor, please signal by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed, same sign. Motion passes. Next on the agenda is 5B, approval of the regular meeting minutes from November 14th council meeting. Any changes or anything there? Okay, motion, please.
I move to accept the minutes as presented.
Support.
We have a motion and support. All in favor, please signal by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Okay, at this time, we'll ask for any public comments from anyone for items not on the agenda for tonight. If you have something, you may step up to the podium. You have, please state your name, and you have 3 minutes.
Thank you, Mayor. My name is Jason Watts, 516 Trowbridge. First off, I'd like to start for Joel's benefit, hail. And second, my mother was the former county clerk for 40 years in Allegan County, and I was also a county employee. It is my belief that the county seat is within the city limits. And if any of you remember the old jail discussions, things moved back and forth. They even talked about putting the jail on the riverfront, which would have been horrendous, and moved back and forth. And finally, the Hayworth property opened up, and the county found its solution. I think there is a solution here within the footprints that the county already has. So I would, what is presented here is kind of like, taking out all the trees, but not having a solution to replace the trees. So let's find out what the solution here is to replace the trees and go from here. But I maintain that that solution is within the city limits. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Jason. Go ahead, step forward.
Hi, my name is Victoria Monagold. I live down at 614 Trowbridge. This is my first city meeting, so thank you for hearing what I have to say. Honestly, what brought me down here today was going for a walk and then seeing that 2/3 of our street trees had disappeared pretty rapidly. My children insisted that I come tonight. So I just wanted to voice my thoughts about all of the impacts from the street trees going. I know that they're going for a very good reason, to give us water that's safe to drink and work on the lead pipes and take care of a beautiful revitalization project. My concern was specifically how many street trees went at once, that they went before our holiday section in time, which not only affects our economical standpoint within the city, but also our psychological impact during the wintertime, during those really hard months for many people who struggle with seasonal depression. Though I know that the trees haven't been around for quite as long as some of the trees that are here in town, the historical significance of having this tree-lined avenue in a city that is a tree city with the Arbor Alliance. So just saying how crushing it was to find so many trees missing so rapidly without realizing when it was going to be happening means that I wanted to request that there wasn't going to be any more trees removed until these had been replaced, and that maybe there's a way to provide transparency for the plan executions. I do remember seeing at the library these beautiful plans, and I was really excited to see what was going to be coming up. But then I haven't heard anything else or come across much of anything else between seeing the plans and seeing that there's no trees. So I look forward to becoming more involved, and I hope that I can bring things to you to be helpful with this. Thank you so much for hearing what I had to say.
Thank you, Victoria. Is there any more public comment? Okay, seeing none, we'll move on down to item 10A. It is a request from Joe and Deb Leverence to enter into an agreement to purchase the city-owned powerhouse and associated lands. Joe?
Thank you, Mayor. As mentioned during the study session prior to this meeting, this was a last-minute add to the agenda due to the fact that last week was a short week and short-staffed, and we forgot to include it in the packet that went out. For the past month or so, I've been in conversations with Joe and Deb Leverence. They own the Baker Art Studios located in the Mill District and the property that is shaded green on the screens behind you or in front of you, depending on which way you are looking in this room. They approached me saying, hey, do you think the city would be interested in selling us the powerhouse? We have some ideas on what we could do to revitalize that building, as well as the associated land to the west, which is the blue shaded parcel as well. My comment to them was submit something in writing to us for council to discuss. You received that in your email this afternoon. Essentially what they are looking for is a 6-month development agreement for them to do the appropriate studies and inquiries into this property to see if the development of this building is viable. They came to Allegan before I came to Allegan, but the stories I hear of what the Baker Art Studio building looked like at that time compared to what it looks like now is nothing shy of a great success for downtown in the city. So I'm comfortable that their past successes, lend some credit to what they can do. You've reached out to our city attorney already. We've done development agreements before. 101 Brady Street is a development agreement that we've done. So we're not new to this, and we've done development agreements with timeframes on them and some milestones, so we're not new to that either. I was very transparent with the Leverences that I am concerned about, the structural quality of that building, as council has seen through the report. We've shared that report with them. I'm also concerned about the environmental impact that building might have had for it being, a powerhouse for so many years. And, we've advised them to start reaching out to environmental firms to do the phase 1, phase 2 baseline environmental assessments that go with any kind of development like this property. The question for council is, would you be interested in entering into an agreement with them? You're not agreeing to sell it right now, but are you interested in entering into an agreement with them to give them 6 months, where if at the 6 months, if everything comes back favorable to them developing it, that we'd be willing to sell them that building? And you're not making a decision tonight. This is just for discussion.
Don't we have a well on the blue section?
So we have a lift station
A lift
on the
station,
blue
right.
station, and we would have to, part of the agreement would be preservation, you know, an easement for the lift station to stay. And I would also offer that part of the agreement would be for the boardwalk of some kind, either to stay there, or we better define the boardwalk at, you know, terminating where Second Street or State Street comes into Water Street, which a lot of people use that sidewalk right now. A lot of people don't walk all the way down through this area behind the kennel. They usually turn right after Tantric's Brewery and walk out to water.
So what would happen liability-wise, Joel? Because we know it's not very strong. Would we still be liable if they,
So we still own it.
happens
Yeah,
meanwhile?
correct. So we still own the property.
Yep.
And in the development agreement, we would put in some language where they would, you know, hold the city harmless, is the phrase I would use. And this will all be run through our city attorney to make sure, you know, boxes are checked, you know, i's are dotted, t's are crossed on this process. The one thing we did share with the Leverences is we would not want them to make any changes to the building during this time frame, like to shore up the roof. We don't want a third party to go in there. That's not a part of the city. That was a concern they shared, is they wanted to shore up the roof, and I told them I don't think we'd be comfortable with that aspect of it until the sale is completed. So, does that answer your question?
It does.
Okay.
I guess I'm not looking for sure what exactly they want to do. I mean,
Yeah.
if they can't go in and do anything, what is the purpose?
So Joe, you want to come up to the podium? Sorry, my mic was off. Yeah, so this is Joe Leverence approaching the podium right now. He can share some of his ideas or processes that he envisions to get us through that 6 months.
Good evening.
Hi, Joe.
For some of you folks that know me, you know what we have done down there in the Mill District. We like historic preservation a lot, all right? And that building has a lot of history to it, and we would like to save it. We have already brought in our engineer that worked with us on Baker Allegan Studios. They are the same firm that worked for the converting the Ceresco Dam, which is down in Ceresco, Michigan, down closer to Jackson, I think it is. And they took that dam, that powerhouse, and converted it into a residential, and he was involved in that process. So they're a very good company, very solid company. We went through the building. He agrees with me that it can be saved. The roof structure on the smaller building is basically in very good shape with the exception of the extreme north end. And I had offered to Joel that, you know, in exchange for getting an exclusive 6-month period here for me to do my due diligence, that I would go in there personally, actually, and repair that end of the roof so that it won't collapse this winter, because that was the big concern, that there's enough joists in there that if we got a really heavy snow, that it might come down and might cause other problems. So I would really like to go in there and do that, but I know Joel wants to err on the side of, you know, liability for the city. I want to err on the side of preserving the building. But we believe that we can turn that building around. My engineer believes it can be turned around. What it can be used for, that's something that we have to go through, you know, in our due diligence. It's not a very large building. We don't know for sure if we can save the smaller building, the really bad condition one, without completely rebuilding all the stonework, and the roof is good, but we might have to replace all of the cinder block that goes around it. The floor looks like it's in better shape than some folks think it is. I mean, it's got 12-inch thick I-beams that are filled with concrete and 1-inch rebar that goes through that. It's built to hold a lot of very, very heavy equipment, And even if it has some rust, it's a long way before that becomes faulty. So we believe it's sound. We believe we can save it. We do believe we need that extra little piece of property in blue because otherwise that property is landlocked. And so therefore, you know, if somewhere down the road, I'm 65 years old, somewhere down the road we wanted to sell that property, we couldn't because it would be landlocked. So we need that other piece to have access to it, and it needs to have some parking. To be a commercial building, it has to have a certain amount of parking for the square footage. And so that would be integral to the process. What are we gonna do with it? I don't know yet. I'm like full of ideas. I'm just like idea guy number one. I thought about turning it into an old mill, making it look like an old mill with a water wheel. I talked about maybe, you know, doing not a bed and breakfast, but like a vacation rental out of it. I talked about making it a little restaurant, a hamburger joint. I mean, there's all kinds of things, but there are so many ifs on the table right now that to say, I'm gonna do this with it, I don't have that answer right now. I have to be able to secure the building from the river, which would require that I fill in the south side of it so that the state no longer considers the building a dam. So that's gonna require me getting with Eagle and getting permission from them to put, you know, fill it in with dirt all along the front of the building, possibly the whole pond if necessary. And like I said, securing that property in blue, how much of that other building I can save, or if I take it down and just make the floor that's existing there just like a patio that would work for the other building. The bigger building is sound. There's literally no structural issues with that at all. So if nothing else, we can save that one. What we do with the equipment, I don't know. That's another big if. So we'll have to go through our little due diligence period and see what we can come up with. Do you guys have any other questions or?
Does anybody have any questions?
This property's within the scope for dam removal, right? So how does that work with?
It saves you $2 million.
Yeah, but there's an engine. Sure.
Called a win-win.
Well, I'm just thinking there's an engineering plan that's coming that has that within scope. So how does this property relate to that and the agreements we have already in place?
Okay, the engineering plan that addresses this currently looks 15 years down the road. Last number I heard actually is 15 to 17 years down the road. Whether or not, you know, we do this or not has no effect on that, except financially. If the city agrees to sell that to us and we fill in the pond, it saves you guys, well, including filling in the pond, we're talking probably $3.5, maybe even $4 million.
Would we need to sell you then the
Well,
rights for that water area? I mean, that's part of the contaminated section of the river, right?
From what I recall of the Woods environmental study that went through there wasn't any contamination in the mill pond. I'm not 100% sure on that, but if I was to fill the mill pond, then that caps that, and that takes care of that problem.
So this is the reason why it's a 6-month due diligence period to answer some of those questions.
If you were gonna redo the roof, Joel, I'm sorry.
I know, they sound close.
It's kind of confusing here, both Joe. There's no liability to the city if you're gonna do it, correct?
Well,
Out of your
Joel's
pocketbook?
Joel's concern was if I or somebody else got hurt in the process.
That could be done by the lawyers coming up with, they're saying that we're not held liable for all that. So I don't know why that wouldn't, that's another win-win.
I know, that.
You know, we have to take care of that roof to begin with, so
Well, that's why.
if you wanna do it, why not?
Well, that was my payment for the opportunity to have 6 months of due diligence to buy the property, is that I would secure that so that it would protect the building. Because, I mean, if it falls in during this 6 months period and the whole back wall of the building falls into the river, I don't want it anymore. So,
What exactly are we?
So this is at no cost to the city, correct?
Correct.
I don't, yeah, that's,
Can I just ask, what are we agreeing to exactly on the city's end? Are we saying we're
Nothing
not
tonight.
gonna touch it, or?
Just discussing.
We're just
right?
discussing, because we're not agreeing to a sales
Yeah, we're just
agreement. We have
discussing
to have
right
that
now.
come back to us.
So, Dave, that's a good question. So the way I envision this coming back is it will come back in an agreement where the city gives, the Leverences, first rights of refusal. We have a sales price and they're identified, and we know what we've sold other unwanted properties by the city for. So it'll be within that ballpark of, $1 to $10 is probably where we would end up. It would give them right to evaluate the building of some way that the city has held harmless. If council's okay with them going in there and shoring up that roof, I will talk to our city attorney. We will run that under his, by his eyes very slowly to make sure we are protected. And Joe, you are right. I want to make sure the city's protected in that.
correct, I would do.
Well, he
But-
said it's
so-
already
so-
been in there.
So the agreement really is, we ain't gonna touch this building for 6 months. We're not gonna sell it to someone else. We're not gonna do anything here to allow the Leverences time to check all the boxes. I mean, Joe does sit on the Riverfront Design Committee. So he's, as council knows, you know his bill, you represent the council on it, so you're very familiar with that. So Joe's been part of those discussions on what happens in this area. There's gonna be, we're gonna have to talk to an attorney that understands riparian rights. Because that mill pond is not a parcel, a real parcel as far as I know. So we can't sell that. It's like a water right-of-way passage. And if you're on a lake, you own to the middle of it. If you're on a river, I'm not sure. There's some questions that have to be answered that won't be answered in a week or 2 weeks. So it's going to be 6 months, to allow them time to, dive deep and find those answers for them. And outside staff time and working with our attorney on some of this stuff, that's the cost to the city. We're not paying for phase one. I would recommend we do not pay for phase one, phase two, any of the environmental studies. We don't pay for structural engineering. We've already done that. That report's been generated already. The other thing we're gonna have to figure out is that blue shaded area is identified in our 5-year Parks and Recreation Plan as a park, but the parcel itself is not considered a park. So we would probably have to figure out how, if we want to sell that to them, how do we go about selling that? Is it a vote of the people, like we were looking at with Mayhem Park? Or is this something where we can give a license for, use as a parking lot? There's some, things we can figure out in that area. Does that answer your question, Dave, of what we're being asked?
Kind of, yeah.
Joel, tonight we're being asked to approve the 6 months? Is
Nope.
that?
Tonight, you're being asked, what's your
No,
gut?
it says
What's your
we're
gut
just
feeling?
discussing.
You're just discussing, it's a petition,
Agreement.
and we will bring something back for you to review, hopefully at your first meeting in December. But I need to, before I invest all that time and energy with the city attorney, I gotta make sure you're comfortable with it. I mean, it's a quick laugh. It saves us $2 million if this, works out, Pollyanna style and everyone's happy and it all comes together. But, at the same time, if it doesn't work out that way, 6 months down the road, we're still dealing with this, which is good, because we probably aren't taking action on that dam within 6 months.
And we have the roof problem taken care of.
Well, maybe.
Maybe. But yes, I see what Councilmember Morgan is saying.
Main issue I have
Yeah,
with
we gotta
somebody
take care of
going
it
in,
anyway.
doing an improvement on a city-owned structure is, one, liability from getting hurt, and two, whatever improvements they've done, say they back out of the deal, do they want compensation back for those improvements?
Yeah.
I want
That's the
no
part
com-
that all has to be formalized before I would sign off on anything like that.
I wouldn't want any compensation for it. I would just do it just to get it through the winter.
That's just where I just want it written up in an agreement, so we all know what's going on.
I actually had it in the agreement. Joel wanted me to take it out because he didn't want me to work in the building for liability, so. So if you guys want to put it back in, I'm okay with that. I'm good, so.
I guess one of the concerns that comes up if we were to agree to do nothing with the building is kind of the point that you brought up of well, this is 6 months and we've got winter coming, and is the building gonna last 6 months? Because the last engineering report we got was, well, there's some concern there.
Yes.
And so I think that would be one of my big concerns, is if we agree to do nothing with the building for 6 months and then something happens.
And he doesn't want it.
Well, this is why I wanted to go in and shore up the roof, because I think as it currently stands, all we've done from the city's point was just step up how often we check on it.
Yeah.
So all that does, in my opinion, is it lets you know sooner that it collapsed.
And to be clear, this is just my first concern right in front of me.
Sure.
Is that immediate sort of, okay, if we agree to do nothing for 6 months when we know it's not sound,
Yep.
is that wise?
Well, from what I understand, there wasn't any plan to do anything, right?
Correct.
So from staff's level, we're doing the weekly inspections to make sure there's no worsening of conditions that are a concern for us. We are working with Consumers Power right now because the electric that controls our dam, I'm just using the word gates, at our existing dam, is on the side of that building. And so we have to relocate that transformer, because if that building is collapsed with a transformer on it, and then we lose the ability to electrically control our dam, we can still hand crank, but that's hard work to hand crank that dam over there. So we are doing some small, minor building improvements that's well within, staff's, authority to make sure we don't have anything's messed up. If 3 months into this, I think we'll have some kind of language that says the city has the right to move in during the 6-month period if something of severe consequence is happening. We'll put that into language. I think what the Leverences are looking for more of is with 6 months, you guys aren't gonna sell it to someone else.
Or tear it down.
Or if the state comes and says, hey, here's, $200,000 to tear down the dam, tear it down, or the powerhouse, tear it down. They want us to not be able to do something within that 6-month period.
And the last time we talked about this powerhouse, we talked about an emergency action plan. Did we find that? Have we updated it?
We're working on updating that. We found a written document, last revised, I think in 2017, so we'll be working on updating that.
I'd want to understand if that has any impact on this agreement, if something were to happen and we would need to respond based off our plan.
That's stuff we can work with our city attorney, with, Joe and Deb and their counsel.
Yeah, by all means, I mean, the property is yours until you guys sign the paper and say it's mine. So in that 6 months, should you guys have to do any kind of emergency, you guys have the right to do it. It's your property. All I'm saying is give me 6 months to bring in my people to do all the inspections, feasibility studies, environmental studies, everything that I need to do to determine whether or not I'm gonna throw my life savings into this building. And like I said, in the course of that time, it's your building, it's not mine. So the city can do with it as they please. They can exit that agreement if they wish to. It's not a 100% guaranteed thing. It's a due diligence development agreement and nothing more. It won't become mine, so.
Guess I'll need to see the agreement then to
Oh,
know
absolutely,
what we're seeing.
absolutely.
Yep. Okay. Right.
Any other
Okay.
questions from anybody?
I think we're good. Thank you, Joe.
Thank you.
Okay, moving on down to number 11, reports from boards, commissions, and city offices. 11A1, review of the planning commission meeting from November 21st. Roger, please.
So this will be short and sweet. We had basically one major topic of conversation on reviewing the future use, future land use and plan map and its definitions. And was something we've been working on for quite some time. We're kind of getting to the final stages of that. I think it's very exciting and kind of looking at how we want the city to grow and what we want to allow in different areas and changing some of those things to make it more feasible to mix in greater variety of housing and things like that. So it'll come before council here, I think, in the next few months, I would think. But yeah, that was the bulk of it.
Okay, thank you, Roger. It was very interesting. What a good group of people. Next on the agenda is 11A2, review of the Allegan Fire District meeting from November 22nd. Joel, please.
Yeah, so very quickly, as council is well aware, we are part of the Allegan Fire District along with Allegan Township. They meet monthly, roughly. They do cancel meetings here and there. The packet was in your report. I was at that meeting because in their packet, on their old business, they had an update on the downtown streetscape, as well as they were approving the budget for the upcoming year. Their budget is on the calendar year, January 1st to December 31st, where ours is a fiscal year of July 1st through June 30th. The streetscape discussion was not much. The fire chief mentioned that he's only working with the city on access to the rear of the buildings on the east side of Locust, with access through the plaza area. So we're still having discussion. Council, you've been kept up to date. I copied our design team's responses to all of his concerns. In regards to the budget, as you'll see when we get into finance department down the way, they are asking us to contribute more money than we contributed last year based off man hours and population, and I'll go over that whole process when we do that report.
Okay, thank you, Joel. Next on the agenda is 11B, the Finance Department. 11B1, request to approve accounts payable and payroll. Roger, please.
Yes, so we have accounts payable in the amount of $129,251.11 and a payroll in the amount of $158,539.56 for a total disbursement of $287,790.67. Motion to approve.
Support.
It has been moved and supported. All in favor, please signal by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion passes. Thank you, Roger. Okay, moving down, 11B3, request to approve the calendar year 2023 City of Allegan financial contribution to the Allegan Fire District. Joel?
Sure. So each year, the township and the city contribute money to the fire district to help support it. For the calendar year 2023, in your report, you can see that the fire district is requesting $472,000 in support from the City of Allegan and Allegan Township. $372,000 of that will go to support their operations, and $100,000 will go to support the equipment fund. When they determine the funding amounts, the fire district utilizes an agreed-upon formula that considers the population of each local jurisdiction, the taxable value of each local jurisdiction, and the 5-year average of man hours in providing fire services. For the calendar year 2023, the City of Allegan will be responsible for 49% of that $472,000, which is $231,280, and Allegan Township will be responsible for 51%, which is $240,720. So we need a motion from City Council to approve our contribution in the amount of $231,280, and this does require a general fund budget balance transfer in the amount of $24,000 to cover this increased cost. So not 10, as I mentioned earlier, but 24, so I apologize. To make your motion easy, you can just say you move to accept staff's recommendation as presented in the report. Or you can read it verbatim as in the report. Any questions?
Can we get a motion, please?
Support.
It has been moved and supported. All in favor, please signal by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion passes. Thank you, Joel. Next on the agenda is 11D, water utilities. 11D1 is the acceptance of a report on the emergency purchase of repairs to the Eastern Avenue Lift Station in the amount of $19,771.41. Doug?
Yes, so in mid-September, we found that the pipe between lift pump 2 and the valve chamber was leaking. That's the first picture you have there of the pipe. There's one larger hole, one smaller hole. We found that leaking. It was actually starting to surface on the ground right there by the lift station. We excavated at the time, found what it was, shut that pump off. While we had the pipe exposed, we contacted Northwest Kent, who we have used for our mechanical work in the past. They come down, looked at it, gave us a quote for repairing that. I talked with Joel at that time. We needed to get it repaired. We couldn't run that pump. So one pump was out of commission. It was reducing the capacity of that lift station. So we gave the go-ahead to get it repaired. Once they got all the parts in to repair it, they got there early October, and we found that there was more pipes leaking. So they ended up repairing those first because they're in a more critical location, and then they spent 3 days there. On the third day, they got the initial leak repaired. One of the pictures in your packet shows kind of the cutaway of that pipe there in that picture, how it was degraded on the inside. Those pipes are cement-lined ductile iron. The cement was gone, the iron was eaten out from the inside. Primarily, that's chemical attack from the local industry. So this repair, the cost to Northwest Kent that for doing their work and the time and work that the city spent on there will be billed back to Perigo per our sewer use ordinance, stating that any damage done to the sanitary sewer system, if the responsible party is identified, that they will be billed for it. So I guess that's what happened. That's how we handled it and how we're proceeding.
Any questions for Doug? Could I get a motion to approve, please?
I move to accept the report of the emergency repairs.
It has been moved and supported. All in favor, please signal by saying aye. Aye. All opposed, same sign. Motion passes. Thanks, Doug.
Thank you.
Moving down to 11E, Public Works. 11E1, recommended approval of the purchase order 23-0860 to Chap Tree Services in the amount of $16,925 to remove 8 city trees at various locations throughout the city. You are really looking for trouble.
Sorry, these are dead, dying, or pose a safety issue, so we felt the need to advertise for bids. We did receive 2 bids on November 10th, and the city clerk opened them. The low bid is CHOP. CHOP did do the work in 2020 for us, and they performed satisfactory. So we're recommending CHOP again for this project.
Any questions for Doug?
You said that these are, just for clarification, these are all dead and dying trees or pose a hazard?
Yeah.
We're not just cutting
They
down
will
healthy
do
trees?
stump grinding and restoration, so.
Great.
Okay, could I get a motion, please?
So moved.
Support.
We do have a motion and support. All in favor, please signal by saying aye. Aye. All opposed, same sign. Motion passes. Okay, moving on down to 11E2, recommended approval of the purchase order 23-0683 to Prein Newhof Incorporated in the amount of $5,000 to provide construction management and oversight as part of the tree removal project at the Padgham Field Airport.
As a result of the MDOT Aeronautics Division doing that survey, they identified trees and areas to be cleared and removed. Prein Newhof did the bid work for us. They opened bids remotely on the same date, November 10th. We had bids ranging anywhere from $82,000 to $1.1 million. So we recommend, and even Prein Newhof recommends, we contract Tree Tech, the company working downtown now.
Okay.
And this would be hiring
So,
Prein Newhof to do the construction engineering, go out and mark the trees, mark the delineations of the areas to be cleared.
okay. So this is just a, for the $5,000 for
Correct.
Prein Newhof at this, for this motion. So can we get a motion to approve?
So moved.
It has been moved and supported. All in favor, please signal by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed, same sign. Motion passes. Then 11E3, Doug touched on, is a recommended approval for the purchase order 23-0682 to Tree Tech in the amount of $90,256.25 for airport obstruction clearing at the Padgham Field Airport.
Correct. The low bid was $82,256. We're asking for additional funding in case there are other trees that we find, or we know of one right now that has to be added to the list. That's at 201 Eastern. So that's why we're asking for the addition and for a total approval of $90,256.
Any questions?
Yes, we had budgeted $100,000 in the current budget for that. So that should cover the engineering and this work.
Was this the, I know when we had talked about the trees that had to be removed for the airport, and that you said, we want to make sure we get it done and get it all done that needs, so we did it while we had the money. Is this that cut?
This is that cut,
Okay. And you're comfortable that we're getting
yes.
done everything we need to get done? Great.
Just a quick question, Doug. Are they doing full removals or are they just doing trimming?
There's one tree that the gentleman had planned, he was avoiding once that one's saved.
Okay.
So the rest of them are full removals.
Okay. Because even when I was on airport board like several years ago, that was the big concern, is that if you just trim them, they continue to grow, and MDOT will only pay for the one trimming, and then it's on the city's dime to continue, so I'm glad to hear that they're mostly going to be removed.
Okay, could I get a motion, please?
I'll move to approve the purchase order for Tree Tech.
Second.
A motion in support. Please, all in favor, please signal by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion passes.
Thank you.
Thank you, Doug. Okay, next on the agenda is City Manager and City Clerk. 11F1, request to adopt Resolution 22.47 to approve a tasting room to be located at 132 Hubbard Street.
Sure, very quickly, I'll kick this off. We do have the business owners in the audience tonight. If you have any questions specific of them, I'll invite them up to the podium. So 132 Hubbard Street, as you can see on that screen there, it's one building. There's 3 suites there. They're occupying the 2 suites on what I would call the east end, or on your screen, the right side of the screen. Ben and Caitlin Ramsey own Mark. They're in the process of rehabbing this. One Enterprises is the owner of the building, and they are leasing from the building owner. And they're looking to open a tasting room for their homegrown beers and wines. So Ben, Caitlin, why don't you come up to the podium so you can share your vision? For them to get approval from the state, the local government has to pass this resolution, but.
Yep. So, hello, thank you. Ben Ramsey and my wife Caitlin.
Hi.
So at 132 Hubbard and 134 Hubbard, which is the middle unit there, the plan currently is that we're going to be hopefully opening a brewery and a winery. Currently, the building is zoned for microbrewing within the central business district. When I spoke to PCI, it was indicated that a winery also would fit within kind of that realm, since it's effectively the same thing. Part of what we're asking today is that for 132, the state does require local approval for the actual tasting room itself. So just to be clear, that's specifically what the approval is for. We have a property at 28th Street up outside of Hopkins. That's where our home is. We produce hops, and Caitlin has a vineyard that we'll be producing products for. The intention here is to tie into some of the agribusiness that Allegan is already known for, especially in the Fenville area, and bring some of that downtown by having locally produced and sourced beer as well as wine products. We'd also like to feature some tasting room food products from local producers. So for example, there's a creamery that I'm actually blanking on the name
Evergreen.
of. Evergreen Lane over in Fenville. There's a tea producing farm up in Traverse City that produces organic teas, actually here in Michigan. And we would like to be able to focus on those areas of business and try to bring some of that traffic that's coming up from Chicago to downtown Allegan to check out not only our business, but the other local businesses that are available, Tantric, Shandorf, and some of the shops.
Right, we'd like to build some synergy with the other breweries as well as participate in different festivals as well with them.
Okay, thank you, Ben and Kayla. Is there any questions?
I don't have a question, but I'm just gonna comment that I was downtown for Small Business Saturday with my mother, and I happened to point out that building, and I said, guess what, Mom? The tasting room is gonna go in here. And she got downright giddy about that. So, thank you very much. Really excited for this possibility.
And you didn't get giddy?
I was gonna say, I'm with Dolores' mom. I'm giddy as well. Very glad to have you wanting to put this downtown.
Could I get a motion, please?
So moved.
We have a motion and support. All in favor, please signal by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion passes. Good luck and thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
Good luck.
Okay, next is 11F2, request to approve a lot line adjustment for permanent parcel 51-130-017-00 owned by the City of Allegan and located off Sherman Street. Joel?
So council will remember back in 2020, the residents of the city of Allegan voted to sell a portion of the Oakwood Cemetery to the Catholic Diocese out of Kalamazoo for the expansion of the Blessed Sacrament Cemetery. Since that approval went through, council authorized the sale of that land for $1 to the Catholic Church. Our attorney and their attorney has been working on the survey documents since that time. They've been going back and forth between city staff and the Catholic Church on laying out how many roads are going to be in this new area. And then through that process, we realized that we only authorized a parcel that did not meet what was voted on. So we didn't have a full fight. We're missing 5 feet from it. So we need to have council reapprove this lot line adjustment so they get the full parcel that was voted on by the people. So we can wrap this project up and put a bow on it and put it to bed. Right, Doug?
I think he told us we were wrapping it up last time and putting a bow on it, but. Any questions for Joel? Could I get a motion, please?
So moved.
Second.
It has been moved and supported. All in favor, please signal by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion passes. Thank you. Okay, next, we have communications from city manager and council and mayor. Staff, do you have any? Michaela? Parker? Tell us about it.
I'll tell you all about it.
All
Teresa.
right.
No, it's coming Friday is the kickoff to our Festive Fridays event. I had sent out an email last week, and I've gotten responses from you, Teresa, Roger, Delora, Dave, and Bill about participation in the parade. If Peter and Mike, if you're interested in riding in the parade on Friday, please let me know. But I will have information on time, arrival time for all of you. This week, we're sending out the email to all of our parade applicants with information on that, so you'll be in receipt of that as well. we're really looking forward to another year of Festive Fridays. All the digital and physical promotions started the first week of November, so that information has been out there. We've been getting good feedback and lots of excitement about it. So we're looking forward to it kicking off this Friday.
Great, thanks, Parker.
Thank you.
Joel?
Just one thing, and I need some direction from council regarding the budget planning session for fiscal year 2024. We start right away in January. I need to know if you guys would like to continue with the cookies with council idea. The reason I'm asking that, you'll recall that is severely lightly attended by the public. And there were some comments made after last year's process to remove that night.
Right now, it's scheduled for January 12th.
Yes.
We kind of introduced the Monday evenings at the food trucks kind of as an alternative to that lightly attended event, so I would think, I don't see a purpose in keeping the
I think last
Cookies
year
with
we had,
council.
3 people come in? If that. I'm all for getting rid of it, but
Do you need a motion to get rid of it?
No, you do not.
Like, get rid of it?
That's it. I'll get rid of it.
okay.
I have a delete button on my keyboard,
Good.
so.
Okay. Good. All right, thank you, Joel. Anything else?
That is all. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Bill? Do you have
What?
anything?
Oh, not really, other than
Just besides being a,
the trees being removed, I agree with this young lady, but they are coming back there. So. Joel, can I get a rendering of what's gonna be done, so I could put it at the shop? Because I have lots of people asking me what's going on, and I'm seeing people daily.
Yeah, so we have the plans on our website under the new
Oh, they are?
section.
Okay.
Yeah, so people can just click that link and
Then I
scroll
can-
through,
I'll put it right on
is
here.
what I would direct people to do. And then
Show 'em.
people come in to ask to look at plans. I brought them up on my computer screens and I've shown them. So if you have people that wanna, they can come see me at City Hall as well.
I pop it, so.
and Joel, maybe you can explain, because I had it on my list since Bill brought it up. Explain to Victoria why,
Sure.
with the bat thing,
Yeah.
why we had to do that. Okay,
Yeah.
all right.
Victoria and I have talked before on other projects. We know each other well.
Okay, all right,
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I did not know that. I didn't realize you knew about the bat thing, and we're disappointed why we were doing it this time of year, and, okay, all right, great. Okay, thank you. Dave?
I just wanted to make sure on the MERS discussion, is that something that would come back to council before we would make any adjustments as a city on that?
So I want to be clear on what you're asking. At the last meeting, we had a representative from MERS here, and we discussed at that meeting, we discussed extending our payback 5 years, which would reduce our annual contribution to the MERS retirement.
Correct.
That's the only change. Yes, council would have to approve that change. Staff does not have the authority through MERS to make that change.
Okay. That's all I need to know right
Yeah.
now. Thanks.
Delora?
I'm just going to put out a reminder that this Saturday is the Allegan Ugly Sweater 5K. It starts at 3 o'clock on the riverfront. There is same-day registration. It's a wonderful event. We typically have well over 200 people that enjoy a little jaunt through downtown. Even if you just step out to see everybody running, we usually have the Grinch there and Santa. Everybody's all dressed up. It's a really wonderful event. So
What time is that Saturday, Dave?
the race starts at 3 o'clock. Registration starts about 1 o'clock down on the riverfront.
Thank you. Mike, do you have anything?
I guess the only thing that can pop into my mind at this time is Michigan played a great game this past weekend.
That they did.
Go.
Thank you, Jason, for reminding me. Thank you for that.
Peter?
I should be able to make the parade, just to let you know, only if I can dress up as Bruce Willis, because Die Hard is the best Christmas movie ever.
Please.
Cannot wait. No, I'm not going to do it.
Yeah, parade steps off at 7 o'clock, so if council members can arrive at the green Chevy at 1:45, that would be fantastic. And we'll have candy to pass out.
Roger?
So just also a quick reminder that tomorrow is Giving Tuesday. So just a reminder to give to your favorite charities, such as the Arc of Allegan County, or any other worthy nonprofits that are working hard to provide services that are needed.
Thank you, Roger. And I don't have anything for this evening. So it is 7:55. We will adjourn the meeting.